Our expert panelists joining us today are Dr. Richard Palmquist, integrative veterinarian and owner of Centinela Animal Hospital. He's an author, lecturer, and teacher. Dr. Christina Chambreau, internationally known homeopathic veterinarian, lecturer, and teacher. Joan Ranquet, animal communicator, teacher, author, lecturer, and owner of Communication with All Life University. And Brendan Golia, professional pet trainer, behavior expert, and owner of OC Canine Coaching. Welcome to Smart Pet Talk. I'm your host, Anna DeVere. And in this special episode, we're excited to be joined by Dr. Bradley Nelson. Dr. Nelson is a holistic physician, author, educator, and an advocate for self-healing, human and animal. Dr. Nelson's key works include the bestsellers The Emotion Code and The Body Code, a method of connecting the emotional and physical aspects of healing and how they must work together for success. He's trained over 10,000 practitioners worldwide in his techniques. Dr. Nelson is the founder of Discover Healing and committed to making energy healing widely accessible. While many of you are aware of his phenomenal work with humans, he's expanded this technique to accommodate the animals. Welcome, Dr. Nelson. I would just like to start by saying I have a personal experience with the Emotion Code that included a member of my family. And the most compelling part of the story is that we come from a background of holistic, integrated Eastern Western medicine, 2 doctors in the family. And my niece contracted a life-threatening illness, which went on for a considerable amount of time, almost over a year. And I recognized from knowing your work that there was an emotional component to it and was able to tell her mom about that emotion code. And it became the thing that made the difference and, in fact, cured my young niece in her early 20s. So the evidence behind your work is compelling. I want to thank you personally for the effect you've had on my family. And I just want to say I'm very grateful that you have made the transition into working with animals. So welcome, Dr. Bradley.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's really great to be here. I'm really excited for this show.
Joan, do you want to start the conversation with Dr. Nelson?
Sure. We got to meet years ago at the Animal World Energy Conference in Manchester.
Right.
Before COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
We were both speaking. So I would love to hear how you took what the emotion code is and how you took what you did with humans and moved it to the animals.
Well, it was kind of an accidental thing, really. I had a patient that had suffered from asthma for a long time, and I was able to help her to get over all of her asthma symptoms. Well, she happened to be a horse trainer, and so about a year later, she contacted me and she said, "I've got this horse that's got a problem. I wonder if you'd come to look at it." And they'd had the veterinarian come and look, and they couldn't figure out anything obvious. But the problem that was happening was this horse was urinating all the time in its stall, and so there was something going on. So my wife and I went down there, and we did some muscle testing, not on the horse, but by surrogate. In other words, my wife would touch the horse and hold her arms straight out, and then I would talk to the horse, because this is how we did it with human beings. And I didn't know if it would work with an animal or not, but it did. And so we figured out pretty quickly from talking to the animal and communicating with the subconscious mind of the animal and getting strong answers for yes on my wife's outstretched arm, or no answers, weak answers for no. Figured out pretty quickly that there was something going on, some kind of an energetic imbalance with this horse's kidneys. And so I had learned with human beings that I could swipe a magnet down the governing meridian. And I figured, well, it's probably the same thing in an animal as it is in a human. And so I just started between the ears and just swiped this magnet down the animal's back a few times to turn the kidneys back on, because I had learned I could do that with human beings. And it worked for about 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden the kidneys tested weak again. Now, what I had learned with human beings is that if an organ is imbalanced and you correct it, and then it shorts out again and becomes imbalanced again, the most likely thing in a human being is that it's something emotional. but I was completely stumped. My wife was there, and I didn't know what to do because it was a horse. And she said, well, why don't you check and see if it's emotional? And I actually thought she was joking. And I laughed out loud, and she kind of looked at me and she said, just check. And I thought, oh, she's serious. So I did, and it was. And what came up was that this horse had emotional energy, trapped emotional baggage, if you will, about another horse. And this trainer that was there said, oh, yeah. She said, those two, so we have to keep them apart because otherwise they fight. And so I don't know what the emotion was. I don't remember, but we released that emotion just like we did just like we would do on a human being, just going down again with a magnet or your hand down the governing meridian. And from that moment, the problem was solved. So that was just the beginning. But that was my first experience working with emotions with animals. And the fascinating thing about it is animals have a subconscious mind just like human beings do. They're very emotional. I mean, horses especially, I think, are maybe the most emotional of all the animals that I've worked with. Some of the most touching experiences that I've had in my life have actually been working with horses that were abused, where I actually would become overwhelmed with emotion myself, which is a very unusual thing. But sometimes the emotional energy is just so powerful coming out of a horse. It's so huge. I've had that experience. So since then, we worked with a lot of other kinds of animals. We found that, it's not uncommon at all for dogs to have trapped emotions, especially if they're rescue animals. In fact, there was a group I spoke with some time ago. They said that they're working with the emotion code with dogs that are being trained to be service dogs. And they said that only about half of the dogs that they get as puppies are actually able to become service dogs in the end. But at the time, they were saying that they were working with these puppies and releasing all their emotional baggage, and they were expecting to see 100% of this new batch actually become service dogs, which is really exciting. I don't know how that ended up. I need to contact them.
And we do have a behavior expert. Brendan, would you like to open up a question for Dr. Nelson?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Emotions are absolutely on the forefront of what I'm thinking about when I approach every one of my behavior cases. I don't like to jump in and try to work on behavior until I see what some of the drivers are, and we can't discount emotions. They're pretty much the main driver, in my opinion. And it trickles downhill from the owners. We all have our emotions of ourselves. We have conflict in our households. We have to resolve that. Our pets take that. We have pets with prior trauma. A lot of these dogs are rescued. And we just don't understand how to talk to them in any way. Or most people have a hard time because they don't speak any language. How can we work with these pets? What does your emotion code do differently that could enable pet parents to help themselves and their pets at the same time?
Well, one of the beautiful things about the emotion code is that it's actually so simple that people can learn how to do it just by reading the book or watching some videos online. And then what this is about, not only for animals, but also for human beings, is, first of all, this fundamental understanding that within each being, each animal, each human being, there is a subconscious mind. And it's that subconscious mind that has all the information really about what's going on with that animal, with that human being. And we now know that we can ask questions and we can get answers from the subconscious mind because it's a binary computer for all beings. And by that, what I mean is it's a little different. I mean, if you think about it, see, I was a computer programmer before I became a doctor, and so that really helped me because what I began to realize was that there was a communication system. I could communicate with the subconscious minds of patients and then eventually animals as well. But you have to understand that the subconscious mind is a computer that is unlike any computer in our experience. I mean, for example, I'm sitting here right now working on my laptop. It has a screen where I can see information. It's got a keyboard where I can type things in. If you look at your phone, for example, It's got a screen and things you can touch. So it's a touch screen interface. But the subconscious mind doesn't have a screen to show you messages. There's no keyboard to put in information. It's almost like an alien kind of a computer. And so it's a binary computer, though, luckily, at least in terms of its interface, which means we can ask questions and get answers as long as the answers are limited to yes and no. I mean, imagine going on to Google and trying to get information, trying to get answers, but it can't elaborate on anything. It can only give you a yes or a no answer. That's what the computer is like, the subconscious mind computer in animals and in human beings. And so what we do is we ask questions and we can get yeses and nos. And there are different ways of doing that. You can use any kind of a dowsing instrument like a pendulum or a bobber, anything like that. We've traditionally used muscle testing of one kind or another. And so, for example, a lot of the work that I've done with horses, I'll have my wife with me, or maybe the owner of the horse or something, or the trainer, and I'll have a person touch the horse or the dog or the cat or whatever, and they'll hold one arm out parallel to the floor, and I'll just go ahead and talk to the animal. Is your name Ranger? That'll come back as a strong answer if that's the animal's name. They know what their name is, and the subconscious mind also knows that that's congruent, and then you can ask about it pretty much anything you want. Are the organs in the body balanced? Is there, are the vertebrae balanced? Is there any kind of an imbalance in the meridian? Or is there some kind of pathogen affecting you or whatever? You can ask anything that you want. And so that's really the secret to this, is that we're accessing what I believe really to be a computer system within each being, animals or humans, that is actually beyond our ability to really comprehend. I think that the subconscious mind within a human being, within an animal, is actually the intelligence in that animal that I believe really is divine, that it's beyond our ability to understand, that's actually doing all of these myriad chemical reactions every moment, keeping everything working, creating new hormones, new proteins, all kinds of things. We have been able, through science, to observe that all of these things are happening, but really, we don't have any idea how it's all done. But I think it's the subconscious mind that's running all those things. And then that's a vastly more powerful intelligence than the conscious mind. So when we approach an animal, we assume that within the subconscious mind of that animal lie the answers to every question, that the subconscious mind in that animal knows with a perfect understanding why they're manifesting symptoms, whether they're behavioral or physical, whatever it might be. And so we simply ask in an organized way, and that's what I've been able to do, is create this organized way of asking these questions. And we're able to discern pretty quickly what the answers are. And the idea there is you want to get from point A to point B, point A being where the animal is now, and point B being where the animal wants to be, or where you want the animal to be, as short, in as short a time frame as you possibly can.
Got it. So it really sounds like we need to ask better questions than with anything else.
Yeah, it's all about asking questions and getting answers. And the fascinating thing that I've learned is that the subconscious mind in animals and in human beings, since it has no screen like your phone or your computer, how does it communicate with us? Well, it communicates with us through its symptoms, mental, physical, emotional symptoms, behavioral symptoms. And so those are the messages from the subconscious mind that should be the beginning of a dialogue for us, really, with that subconscious mind to figure out, what's going on? What do you need? And it's a beautiful thing that the answers are so easily accessible.
And that's what's beautiful is in conventional medicine, when I was trained as a conventional veterinarian, our goal was to get rid of symptoms, period, as opposed to looking at symptoms as beautiful clues to what was going on inside. And from the sustainability side aspect, while a lot of holistic medicine is maybe more sustainable than conventional, it's still using stuff a lot, acupuncture needles or bottles of herbs, etc. And it's one of the things I love about the emotion code and the body code is that from what you just said, you don't even really need the magnet. You can just use your hand to go down. And it can also be done, I would assume, when you're using the surrogate with an animal. You don't have to even touch the animal. No. You can be near the animal. Some animals, wildlife, etc., you're not going to be touching them. Joan leads tours to Africa where they're communicating with the wildlife, and they're not going to go out and pet the elephant while they're doing emotion code. And so it's something that people can learn by reading your book and watching the videos and begin to use right away. What I would imagine that some people would go, well, this is totally miraculous, and how come not everybody's using it 100% of the time? What stops people? What has it not work?
Well, I think that if you think about where people are in terms of Western medicine, for example, most people, and of course, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a need for Western medicine. Mm-hmm. Western medicine is great at acute problems, right? Traumatic injuries, things like that.
Yeah.
But the problem is, most of the time, most people don't need drugs and they don't need surgery. And those are the things that Western medicine has to offer. And so people are very conditioned, especially in the West, especially in the United States, where people are continuously bombarded with these messages about how, you should ask your doctor about blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can't watch TV for 10 minutes without seeing at least 3 drug ads. And so people are very conditioned. And we're also just now coming out of this post-industrial model, really, of how the body works. And the body has always been seen in that model since since the Industrial Revolution as a machine. And it's made up of all these other machines. And if one of the machines within the big machine fails, then you remove that machine and throw it out, right? And hopefully you can still survive. Or you might need to get a machine from someone else and have that put in, right? So we're just coming out of that model, but it's a little bit painful. Change is painful. Huh. And, eventually everybody's going to realize, oh, well, this new model is not, I believe that all along. That's eventually the last stage of acceptance, right? I mean, at first everybody scoffs and everyone thinks it's ridiculous. And then the end stage is everybody said that they thought that way all along. That's how it works. So the consciousness level of the world, as I see it, is really expanding every day. And it's interesting. People are waking up to all kinds of things all the time. And I think that we're in a very special time of the Earth's existence, and that consciousness level is going to keep expanding, and it's never going to go back to where it was. And one of the aspects of that is this new understanding, really, about animals, that they're emotional beings, and that the emotional energies that become trapped within them, just like with human beings, are the biggest underlying cause of their physical and their behavioral problems. And that people can fix their own animals in most cases themselves. And who knew? There will always be a need for veterinary medicine and so on, right? But most of the time, most animals don't need a drug or a surgery. Most of the time, they just have emotional baggage. And
I would say it's really important.
Flower essences, Mother Nature's gift. A natural solution to everyday problems. Blackwing Farms knows their flowers for pets and people.
Blackwing Farms is aromatherapy for animals. Basic understanding of aromatherapy is that the scents kind of have a calming, peaceful effect. Then, animals have a greater sense of smell than we do. Over the time that we've been using them, it's become so evident how powerful and how effective they are.
It does make a difference. The balms and the sprays make a difference. I've seen it happen.
Contact Blackwing Farms to find your flower.
At Jill & Jones, we believe in natural care for everybody, whether two-legged or four. Our organic hemp extract pellets are perfect for supporting the health and vitality of your larger companions. For our smaller friends, our pet chews provide the natural relief they need to stay calm and happy. And for those times when you need soothing care, our hemp salve works wonders for both humans and pets alike. Jill and Joan brings natural balance and comfort to your entire family every day.
All pets respond to soothing touch, but they can't always tell us how much it hurts. That's why treating them at home with LumaSoothe 2 is priceless. LumaSoothe 2 puts advanced light therapy in the palm of your hand. This safe, non-invasive treatment relieves arthritis, back pain, and general deep inflammation, along with skin injuries and regrowing hair. 2 simple modes provide comforting care that works naturally with your vet's advice. Visit lumasoothe.com for the light therapy that feels like love.
The thing that's so important about this to me is as you say, there's this sort of ascendant consciousness that's arising, that's always been connected, but is becoming conscious of its connection. And we become conscious through these trials of necessity. You know, I love someone and they're broken and no one can fix them. And so I call someone who touches them because I'm not touching them anymore because I don't know what to do for them. And in the process of touching that person and other people, you become aware that there's a consciousness and you develop a system of communication. Once that system of communication is developed, you can teach it to other people. And all the while that's going on, there's skeptics who are going, that's BS, that's not real. He's a quack, they're a quack. And I have this great life story of coming from knowing that I knew everything to realizing that I was a quack, and then being happy with being a quack while other people figure out what we already had figured out and then later become quacks too. And so I think it's really important to get past all the labels and even a lot of the explanations, because in the beautiful simplicity of this, we have consciousness in absence of contact. And that is disease by the very basic structure of all diseases. And when we have energy that's flowing and doing what it's supposed to do, we feel comfortable. And we have energy that's not flowing, that's stagnating, then all kinds of terrible things can happen. And so we have all these branches of medicine that come out like denominations of some massive church and go like, well, chiropractic cures everything, or homeopathy cures everything. What cures everything is love in contact and love in context. And that subconscious mind can be spoken to. I am a muscle tester, so I love muscle testing, and I went into it to prove it didn't work. And I failed. And in the process of failing, I actually succeeded more as a veterinarian. And you know, the first animal that I had that experience with was a golden retriever that was having all kinds of difficulties, and I couldn't solve it. And I literally got in the run with this dog, and I put him on my lap, and I just almost cried because I couldn't help him, and he was having so many problems. And I started getting all these insane thoughts. I mean, really insane thoughts. And I'm looking at this golden retriever, and everybody knows that there's nothing more like heart friendly than a golden retriever. And this dog, all of a sudden I went, I think someone in this dog space is completely insane. And I called the sister, who's the one who brought the dog in, and she goes, oh yeah, it's owned by my sister. She's got a massive brain tumor. She's totally insane, has been her whole life, the whole time she had the dog. And this dog had been accumulating all these attempts to help and failing to help, and all this different emotion that was tied up in all these different places in the body, manifesting as hypothyroidism, manifesting as cancer, manifesting as everything, you know? And as we just acknowledged to the dog that it wasn't the dog's job to fix the person who was broken, and that she couldn't absorb that poor woman's emotion into her and take it away, because that energy was the owner's energy. She just needed to let it pass through. And this dog had this massive resurgence in health, went off its thyroid medication, just got better. And that was my first case. And I couldn't think with that for a long time. You know, I really preferred not to have had that experience because it was uncomfortable. Yeah. And so I really appreciate the fact that you can go through the discomfort into the more enlightened location and then stand still long enough to talk to people so that they can hear this. And then veterinarians will be angry and upset that someone said that they're not necessary, which you didn't say, right? You did not say that, right?
No.
But people will hear that and they will make that up and they will say that. But the fact of the matter is, all you're saying is what everybody on this panel is saying. We need to touch each other. We need to be present, and we need to be aware that there's a system of communication there, and then that we can adopt a technique to contact that and get information. And if it's BS, it won't work.
Right.
And if we didn't do it correctly. That's the other part. Ego doesn't like that part, right? But I did it and it didn't work. He's an something, right? So fill in the blank for your appropriate expletive. But I just, it's a very, very necessary, very beautiful thing to touch something and find out that it's a being. It's even a better thing to find out that there's a way that you can talk to it and then that you can help it. And I just am so happy that you're on the show to do that. So I don't have a question more than just saying, why is it that humans are so goofy about people discovering things and developing systems of communication? And then why, when they do that, do they develop artificial intelligence to ask machines about machines to find out about people?
These are the deep questions. Wow.
Yeah, we'll have to do another show for those.
Sure. Joe, do you have a question on that? I know you have something.
I have more kind of questions, comment that leads to question, and that is, you know, as I do EFT, emotional freedom technique, with animals, and as an animal communicator, and I mostly teach now, but I love to tell people, going back to what Dr. Palmquist was saying, that, like, you know, as practitioners, sometimes we have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And a lot of people don't love, like, the idea of negative emotions. And, you know, if a gazelle doesn't have fear, it wouldn't have the GPS to save its own life. So I'd love, you know, for just since you do the emotion code, to talk about the emotions that really do that. I mean, I don't believe there are positive or negative emotions, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like there are some that might not be serving as well as some could.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So how I explain this is when an experience happens to us or an animal, same thing. There's no difference, really. In fact, we tell people when they learn how to do the emotion code, they're automatically an animal whisperer. They know how to do it on humans. They know how to do it on animals. It's the same exact thing. And basically what we believe is this, that when something happens, some kind of a stimulus occurs, that's the trigger for some kind of an emotion to be released or to be generated, really. Anciently in China, they believed that the organs and the glands in the body are the frequency generators that create the emotional energies that we experience. And every emotion, like everything else, is made of energy. Every emotion is a specific frequency. And so what happens most of the time is that an emotion will come up for us or for an animal, same process, and we might feel the feelings, we might think the thoughts that go along with that emotion. And then normally we kind of acknowledge that emotion, and that emotion then dissipates its energy and goes away. So it's like a little emotional loop. And we're completing these emotional loops every day, all day long. Animals too, no difference. Sometimes, though, we interrupt that process. Now, as human beings, we may decide an emotion is coming up, and we might decide we don't want to feel that. We don't want to go there. We're just not going to allow that. And so we have the capability of just stopping that process. So that means that emotional loop now is stuck open. And the energy that was trying to express as that emotion was trying to be felt is now trapped in the body. Another way to create an open loop on an emotion is if the emotion is just too powerful or too overwhelming for the body to really handle it. And I think that's really what happens with animals. And so with the emotion code, what we're doing is we're using the subconscious mind to find these open loops and then release those. And that's really as simple as it is. Now, if you think about it, what we're doing when we're releasing a trapped emotion is we're closing a loop on an emotional experience that is really no longer serving us. And so with animals, with human beings, it's the same thing. When we have some emotional experience that we go through, let me give you an example with a human being that comes to mind. There was a woman that came in to see me back when I was in practice. And as I was working with her, we found that she had a trapped emotion of resentment. And she was about 42 years old. And we needed to know a little bit more. And this can happen with animals too. And that's a question that we ask. Do we need to know more before we can release this? The answer was yes. So I figured out that this had occurred. We're doing muscle testing with her. And it had occurred when she was 18 years old. Resentment. And she said, oh, I know what that's about. And I said, really? She said, yeah. This girl who was a cheerleader when I was in high school, I don't know why, I can't remember, but even to this day, she said, if I ever think about her, I can just feel the resentment welling up inside of me. And so we released that trapped emotion. And she came back in a couple of days later and said, that really works. Last night, I was with a friend of mine from high school, and we were talking, and that girl's name came up. And for the first time in all these years, I didn't feel any resentment. I didn't feel anything. Now, if you think about it, with an animal, let's say, for example, you have an animal that's been abused. I remember one of the most touching experiences that I had was actually working with a horse. And this story is in the Emotion Code book. This was a very expensive quarter horse. They had paid $100,000 for this horse and found that they couldn't work with it. After they sent it off for some more training, the horse seemed to hate people. There was nothing they could do. So a lot of the time, unfortunately, when horses are sent off like that for training, they're sometimes abused. And that's what happened in this case. And so anyway, I went to work on this horse and started releasing emotions. And all of a sudden, I'm weeping because the emotional energy coming out of this horse was so powerful. 2 weeks later, that horse started winning, right? And so it's interesting because you see an animal, just like a human being, can go through some experience and then they have emotional energy and it may not be really serving them anymore. I think if you work on an animal like, in the wild that needs to have those protective mechanisms, you're not going to change those. But if you have an animal that maybe went through something traumatic. For example, let's say that I haven't done this, but I think that this could happen. I saw a video the other day about a horse, or not a horse, but it was a deer that was trapped in a barbed wire fence. And it had been there for a while. And so some ranchers came along and they were able to cut the wire fence and get the deer freed. Well, that deer undoubtedly now has emotional energy about the barbed wire fence that may prevent that deer from getting across that fence ever again, and it might adversely affect that animal. And that's what happens with us. We go through a breakup or we go through some kind of experience, and it stops us from having future relationships, or it interferes with our ability to find love or make money or be healthy or whatever it is. And so that's how this works. I mean, if the subconscious mind does not want emotional energy that is trapped in the body to be released, it just won't come up for you. If you're working on the animal, it just won't happen. You won't find it because the subconscious mind is smarter than you.
This really brings a lot of thoughts about some clients I've had in the past 6 months or so, or just recently, as far as emotional states or things I just can't get around in the ways I'm taught to work with, desensitization, counter conditioning, and choice, and bringing positive energy and adding movement and health overall. I've had a couple of clients who've had really challenging pets who have lost other pets in the family. and their behavior is just it's tough. They don't seem happy at all. They don't want to see any other dog. They're uncomfortable around anything new. They don't seem like they're with it. Even their appetite, doesn't seem with it. I got one pet, eating again, but I'm still stuck as far as how to make it feel kind of whole again. It's changed drastically after it lost its pet or its friend. And I've had a lot of other dogs who have come from breeding situations where they're just relinquished and they don't want to get in the car anymore in any way, shape, or form because that car took them to a place they were dumped, or the only time that car was maybe to the 1 or 2 times to the veterinarian. And those are probably traumatic experiences as well, or who knows?
Right.
And they're clearly saying they're terrified. And so if I could have another tool in my toolbox to help them, it would be invaluable.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is it because it's so fast and so simple and so easy. It doesn't take a long time. Most people can release a trapped emotion from an animal or a human being in about a minute or less once they learn how to do the process. And the beauty of it is that anybody can learn how to do this because, if you think about how much emotional baggage there is in this world, there are never going to be enough trained people to do this who maybe are charging for their efforts. We've certified over 13,000 people now in about 80 countries around the world, and they're all busy. But, a lot of them are maxed out and they can't take any more clients. Well, what's the rest of the world going to do? Well, that's the beauty of this is that anybody can learn how to do it. In fact, kids can learn how to do it, even at pretty young ages and having great success. So, this is definitely something that you'll want to add because I've heard so many stories. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago that we had hit 10,000 stories that had been submitted, and they're still coming in from all over the world. And a percentage of those are about animals. And, the beautiful thing about working with animals, first of all, it's so fun. If you love animals like I do, it's just so much fun to work with them. And then to see the changes that take place. We require our emotion code practitioners who go through our certification course, they have to work with 5 animals because we know that chances are 1 or 2 of those animals are going to have, some kind of behavioral or some kind of physical issue going on, and they're going to see those changes happen. And so that's a really fun aspect of it.
Well, I so much want to thank you for making it available to everybody because one of the things that I've done over the last 40 years of teaching people is looking for what is it that people can be doing on a regular basis that's easy to do? And there are many things out there. There really are some wonderful tools. And many of them you have to go to a course and take a course to get it. And so to be able to read a book, practice, have faith that, well, if this didn't work, it's not that something's wrong with it, but maybe I need to ask a different question. Maybe I need to try it differently. And it's so important because people can now learn this and go into shelters like Joan does with the EFT. People can prevent problems I've been encouraging people to do Reiki for the whole family every day, just to offer Reiki for 10, 15 minutes. Emotion code is something that they could do every day. Right?
Absolutely.
Just do a quick check. Is anything off?
Absolutely.
Quickly test to see what's off. And then that's going to prevent behavior problems in the future. It's like the puppies that Brendan starts with. If they started off getting this from day one, they'd be in such great shape. So I really want to thank you for that. And
you're so welcome.
If we want to empower kids back to changing world, if you empowered children to be able to do this, and I'm sure that they learn it very quickly because it's native. It's actually speaking their language, So if you actually had the kids learn how to do this, and they realize that the consequence of an action isn't just a bruise on the face, but actually maybe somebody having a problem, when they start seeing that, really social beings change their behavior because of it.
Yeah, we are actually working on that. We're working on a curriculum and for kids, and it is amazing. There's a story an experience that I had that I want to share with you really quickly. I was called by a friend of mine who has a shelter, dog shelter, And they had this one particular dog that they had had for 8 months. And they didn't know what they were going to do with the dog. They were afraid they were going to have the dog put down, because at this particular shelter, they rescue dogs from all over this area where I live, and they bring them in and they kind of rehab them a little bit, and then they adopt them out to families. But this dog was ferocious. And so I went to the facility, and here's this dog, and it's in this iron cage with thick bars. And the dog, I could see all of its teeth, right? It was in that reaction where it was really scary. And luckily, because this is energy medicine, I didn't have to get in the cage with the dog. There was no way. But I worked on the dog from just, a few feet away, and released some trapped emotions. And I think it had terror and fear and some other things, and anger. And then I left, and it was still, by the time I left, it was still like wanting to eat me alive. And I was kind of glad to get out of that room. But I didn't talk with her again for a while. And about a year later, I ran into her. And I said, hey, whatever happened with that dog that I worked on? Do you remember? Because they were going to have the dog put down because there was nothing they could do. It'd been 8 months that they've been working with this dog, and with no luck. And she said, it was a few weeks after you came and worked on the dog, he just started to make these changes. And about 2 months after you came, we adopted him out to a family with little kids, and he's just loving it. And they're loving him.
Love.
Exactly.
Love. I want to thank you again. I agree with Dr. Christina that this is a remarkable tool. My experience with people and the dramatic experience I had clued me into it. But today you've really given us a peek at why this works so well for our animals. And I want to thank you as well from all of our panelists for giving us a tool. And if you at home would like to try the emotion code, join us, because you really can open a dialogue to our pets. And I think emotions are the key to having a dialogue with, something greater than yourself. So thank you, Dr. Nelson. Is there any other way we can get in touch with you?
Well, our main website is at discoverhealing.com. And then I have a personal site at drbradleynelson.com. It's drbradleynelson.com. And of course, we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those places. I want to thank all of you for being so open. I used to have a saying when I was in practice: the more people that think I'm crazy, the happier I am. And I think you're all kind of like that. We're kindred spirits, so thank you.
Yeah, we're all.
We are. Thank you. And perfect. If you at home would like to be a part of this conversation, you can email your questions to our website. Again, thank you, Dr. Nelson, for helping us raise our animal IQ. And it reminds me of this quote: when awareness is brought to an emotion, power is brought to your life. We hope this show empowers you to speak your pet's love language. Until the next time, love your animals. Medical information obtained from our website or the live show is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. If your pet has or you suspect they might have an illness or other medical condition, you should consult a healthcare provider. The opinions expressed on this TV program are not necessarily those of Smart Pet Talk, this TV show, or their sponsors. For all questions or info on sponsorship, email us at info@smartpettalk.com or visit our website at smartpettalk.com.